Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Inner Conquest, the world's greatest modern metaphysics channel. I'm your host, Jacob Edens, and today we're going to be discussing how to observe a wanted reality in the face of opposition. So, what happens when you are using your awareness to create reality, right? You are working on two different dimensions, okay? When you look at this world, right, there are lots of processes and protocols that make this place, how do you say, different from, Neville Goddard calls it keyed down, right? So if you think of this reality as a keyed down version, his words, not mine, what does that mean, right? So if you're in planet Earth and it's a keyed down version of reality, what does a keyed down phrase mean? Let's break apart the language of that. What does keyed down mean? Okay. Keyed down, if you were playing on an octave, would mean a lower reverberation. So, you have a high vibration and you have a lower reverberation. So what makes a reverberation higher or lower? Well, a lower reverberation oscillates slower. Right? It's really higher frequency. So if you have a keyed down version of reality, then it means you're working at a slower reality, okay? So when we think of manifestation, which is just a fancy word for unseen to seen, right? Which is really what everybody wants to do, is understand the contents of their mind and be able to externalize it. You understand that if this is a keyed down version, then what you think, right, at a higher version would instantly manifest if it was a high keyed reality. So if you had a high keyed reality and you thought about an apple, boom, you got an apple in your hand, good to go. If you're at a low keyed reality, you think about an apple and the apple slowly comes towards you, okay? So understanding frequency is important, because when you understand that this is a keyed down version of a higher frequency reality, you can figure out that there are different dimensions within reality that oscillate at different frequencies that are overlaid on top of each other, okay? So a good example is your mind is a higher frequency dimension of reality than your physicalized world, right? That's why you feel separation from everything, because in your mind, you're like, wait, in my mind, I could immediately go to Bali, but my body is not in Bali, right? So you're living on these two different planes of existence simultaneously. So what happens is you forget the causative point of the higher plane influencing the lower plane, and you begin to think from the lower plane as if it influences the higher plane, right? So this is like heaven and hell type situation. You start to think that the external world is the cause, when it's actually the affect of the higher realm thinking and assuming that it is a way that it is, right? Whatever that assumption may be. So when you wake up, you reorient yourself back to understanding that that higher frequency is going to be more powerful than that lower frequency, right? When you have a higher power frequency, it tunes out that lower frequency, and if it's more powerful, it can tune up that frequency as well too. So by understanding this, you can start to place prioritization of effort on making sure that that mental aspect of reality is laid in terms of the groundwork of the consciousness within which you want to dwell. What does consciousness mean? It's a fancy word for aware, right? What does awareness mean? Well, if I'm in a dark room and then I flip on the lights, I can see everything that's going on. So now I'm aware of that thing, right? So when you think about who you are, you're a focuser and a thinker. What you think you become, and what you focus on you create. Both of those things are a byproduct of selective placing of awareness, meaning that I select my awareness to place it on thought. I select my awareness to place it on something to focus on, either in a third dimensional slower realm or in a higher dimensional realm, which is mind, right? So as you understand that, you are really just placing your awareness where you want it to be. And if something isn't the way you want it to be external, you can understand that that's an effect of where your higher dimensional reality, i.e. your mind, has been placing its awareness, right? So if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're aware of all these problems, then you're going to magnetize to you that which of the frequency which you're emitting via where your awareness is placed. So what's really great about this is understanding that it really doesn't matter what's external to you, because you can always reframe and change that internal higher frequency mind immediately to the reality that you want to be in, right? And this is where you get things like faith and assumption, because in a higher frequency realm that wasn't keyed down, you would just assume and or place your awareness and or think that you have something and it would appear like that, right? But if you're in a keyed down reality, you're playing a game that has a slower tempo, meaning that it is going to take that sustained focus and thought to have something come back to you. So that's where assumption comes into the play, right? Assumption's hardened into facts. Well, assumption is just a decision that something is how it is, and placement of awareness on an implicative either state, mental movie, or, field of awareness that implies that it is that way in your mind, knowing that your mind externalizes its contents onto what you could call the screen of space or a third dimensional reality, right? So as you begin to control that, you garner a lot more creative freedom, because you can amplify that understanding with the knowing that if you want to use a law of attraction lexicon, there's no difference between a castle and a button, right? So if I hold a mental image in my mind of a button, I can just as easily hold a mental image of a castle. There's no higher degree of energy needed to manifest in that realm, right? My mind, unseen to seen. So I'm seeing a button right now. Now I'm seeing a castle, right? But it's just a picture to the mind, right? So that's how you got to think about creation, because if you want to call God, sometimes I don't use that word because of the programming around that word, but you could call it, the creative force of the universe that is the embodiment of unconditional love, or whatever you want to call it, right? That essence of creation. You want to have that placed on a higher dimensional realm as if you have what you want, and allow that to materialize externally. And as you do that, you'll understand that at every given point in your life, you have a third dimensional reality and you have a fourth dimensional reality that you can bifurcate between. So if you have something in your third dimensional reality that's really the way you want it, then placing your awareness on it will allow that thing to persist, as well as creating belief structures that this is always how it is. The only thing that can trip you up is if you have belief structures of this thing always being not the way you want it to be, because then you're dealing with counter-based momentum, right? So, I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, so you're dealing with counter-based momentum when you have belief systems that go against that. But to reorient back to finish my thought process, when you have a castle or a button, it's the same thing in your mind, right? When you have counter beliefs, this ties in perfectly too, that are counter to you just having that now, generally what it is a position of importance that is higher than yourself, right? So if you're like, I could never have this person because that's usually a self-concept issue of you not being worthy enough, or, something is on a pedestal above you. So understanding that every single thing in your mind is on the same plane, now it's really more about selectively choosing the different states, the different visions, and the different things that you want to place your mind on, in opposition to having to do something for a certain amount of time to get something, or having to execute something perfectly to do this. Because within that type of awareness, the implication is still that it's not yours right now. So the trick is to understand that if you can have implicative mental conversations, feeling states, and mental images or mental movies, whatever you want to call them, the common theme of you having what you want right now, closer than now, sooner than soon, right? Like it's literally yours exactly at this point in time and space, and understanding that it's a keyed down reality, that it takes a little bit of time, which is an illusion, because the second that you adopt that mental state, that thing is already yours. It's just the allowing of the external world to coordinate itself, to morph to that vision within which your mind is affixed. And if you can just understand that it's about placing that, decreasing the importance of that thing, understanding that you think implicative of having it now, and then you allow the external world to essentially coordinate whatever it needs to coordinate to match that without you changing that, what Neville would call inner man, you've got it. So I know you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to do coaching, I got my 2 protocols up. I have Modern Metaphysics, which is your basics. Spartan 1 is much more in-depth, more body optimization, all of that good stuff. The details are in the checkout links, as well as I have the normal coaching stuff for calls and texts and emails if you'd like to do that as well. But more important than any of that, go conquer, and I'll see you in the next one.